Hello again, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens, everyone. I'm John, and today we're going to take a look at a topic that all of us probably have an answer to. Serious. What is the scariest town or city you've ever been to, and why? Maybe not safe for work. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Decatur, Illinois. My mom and most of her family are from there, and the town is just so damn sketchy. People being shot the next street over seems like a daily thing. My crazy great-grandma lived in a 4-story house by herself. House had been in the family for a while, and she never locked the doors, just slept with a 9mm next to her bed. I ended up driving to this tiny town in the middle of Nevada that I assume used to be a mining town. It looked like a steady paycheck hadn't been seen in this town for 20 years. The houses were all dilapidated, and the locals looked just as worn out. Bullet holes and burn marks could be seen on pretty much every building. The only reason I drove through the town instead of just sticking to the main road was to top up on gas, but I couldn't find anything, not even a small convenience store. It must have been hell for those folks, considering the closest town with an actual store and gas was around 70 miles away. Buying weed with my buddy in Jersey City about 10 years ago was harrowing. He'd just moved to that area, and I was visiting, and we're both used to California, where weed wasn't a big deal. In Jersey City at the time, it felt like we were brokering a major drug deal. We met up with my buddy's new coworker, who, first of all, was alarmed when he saw that I'm a white guy. His connection literally had a huge scar across his face, and we had to stand with him on the street corner for several minutes to make sure the cops weren't following us. It felt like a mission from Grand Theft Auto. Everyone talks about Gary, Indiana, but there's a town over the border in Illinois called Harvey, Illinois. I can't put my finger on exactly what makes it worse, but being there felt like I was on the moon. El Alto, Bolivia. This was 15 years ago at least. It's above the habitable zone, and locals were openly fighting in the streets. Good times. Cairo, Illinois. It's a tiny town at the very southern tip of the state that had a peak population of 15,000 in 1920, but was down to 1,700 people in 2020. The town was founded to be a shipping hub at the convergence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, but it suffers frequent floods and had some of the worst race relations and riots in any U.S. city. Anyone who currently lives in Cairo is only there because they have nowhere else to go. For me, it was Tijuana. I'm sure that there are countless places that are much more dangerous than this one, but I was young, and the impossibility to just walk a few paces without getting harassed by countless people asking me for money or selling me some junk. They were not shy about getting in my personal space and just grabbing me. Of course, I was always aware of the fact that if I just took out my wallet, someone would just run and grab it, and it was constant. So the extra awareness of my environment changed into paranoia, and, as I was getting tired, into fear. Okay, my super quick Tijuana story. So when I was down there years ago in the late 90s, the bars would close the bathrooms about an hour before the bars closed, and then you'd duck into an alley with some of your friends to relieve yourself, and then the federales would be in there, and they would say, do you want to go to Mexican jail, or do you want to give us all the money in your wallet? That happened. Marysville, California. In my early 20s, I reconnected with a childhood friend who had moved up there. We made a road trip up there together after he'd moved back down to my area. Good God, what a shithole. I'd been in pot since high school, but this guy and everyone else in the town was deep into crank, now known as crystal meth. It was sickening stepping into their deep meth world as a naive, clean person. The groups of friends were all paranoid, backstabbing, conniving scumbags to each other. In the course of that one long weekend, one of his friends, not with us, DUI'd through a red light and T-boned a family. His ex-girlfriend hooked up with an asshole even she didn't like, just to piss my friend off. And on the ride home, we got a call that one of the weird brooding guys we'd been hanging out with was working on his car, which ended up with him doused with burning gasoline, 50% burns, not expected to survive 24 hours. The friendship cooled after that. Last time I saw him was when he was marrying a quiet girl with 2 daughters that he had known about a month. Sometime later, word through the grapevine, they're having a lot of problems. was the last I ever heard about that product of Marysville. While being a tourist in Los Angeles, walking around the downtown area, I accidentally walked through Skid Row. I seriously thought there was a zombie outbreak with a number of drugged up people limping and staggering around all disheveled. Smelled like decay, people pulling their pants down and shitting all over the sidewalk, some people with diarrhea all over their pants. There was a truck that came along to hand out food to the homeless, and people swarmed it. It was so unreal. If suburbs count, Endigan. Only place I've ever been that felt distinctly unfriendly, and like everyone there didn't want me around. I wound up getting dinner and eating it on the train out instead of staying at the Macca's. Yes, before you ask, it is that Macca's. Because I just felt so freaked out by the whole place. Pueblo, Colorado. I was robbed after 10 minutes at the zoo, and everything in the car was gone. Also, when I was young, I had my father's gun stolen from the car. We had finished a hunting trip and got back around 11:30, so we went to bed at 3 in the morning. My mom's car was stolen as well, as my dad's chainsaw and a very important rifle that was my grandfather's. My hometown in Turkey. Moved to Germany when I was 3. Started jogging with 14 to 15, even in holiday season. Went to Turkey to my hometown. Second day, went jogging. Saw bullet holes in some of the signs. Kids with shotguns and their dads with them. 2 out of 10. Wouldn't recommend. Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. I'm from the UK and used to work for a company with offices around the world. Anyway, they had a temporary staff shortage in Brisbane, Australia. They asked me if I'd mind moving there for a 3-month assignment. I couldn't say yes fast enough. What a great opportunity. Anyway, about a month in, the sales team proudly announced that we had won a contract. The job was simple enough: install some servers at Port Moresby's airport. So off I went with an Australian college. He was not happy to be going. I found out why when we got there. The place is a shithole, an utter train wreck of a place. There are 200 ethnic tribes in Papua New Guinea. They mostly hate each other. There's one thing that unites them. They all hate white people. Everywhere we went, we were chaperoned by 2 guards with machine guns. Kidnapping is a national sport over there. Cannibalism isn't unheard of. Corruption is off the charts. It is the sketchiest place I've ever been in my life. I could talk about the amenities, like the electricity going off half a dozen times a day, or the filth and rats everywhere. But it's the people, the looks of hatred, and the constant feeling that you were just a moment away from some opportunist gunning you down because he liked the look of your shoes. They would kill you in an instant for something as small valued as that. We'll never go again. I recommend no one ever goes. Have a peaceful trip to Colombia instead. Probably the project in my city, Rochester, New York. Accidentally took a few wrong turns, and I kid you not, I saw 2 people shooting up what I can only assume was heroin, a small house fire, and 2 small gangs beating the shit out of each other in broad daylight. I don't know if that was a regular thing, or if that day was just wild compared to the usual, but it scared the shit out of me. Parts of Peru. I remember taking a bus ride to a beach town, and the guide who was with us said, "As soon as we get off the bus, we need to bury your backpacks and belongings in the sand." As soon as we finished, a group of people from town jumped us. We didn't have anything on us, so after a while they left us alone. Afterwards, the guide said the bus driver took the wrong route to the beach. He was advertising to his friends in town that he had a bunch of tourists. We had to bury your stuff so you all didn't get robbed. More spooky than scary, but Myers Flats, California. I was there on a bike trip with a busted wheel in 1996. The hardware store was an empty open shell. There was a huge shirtless guy frying sardines in the back of his pickup truck. There was a family-owned diner with decent food. The hostess was the daughter who told me she was leaving in September, never coming back. The woman at the post office lighted gentry when I asked if she lived there, and told me she lived about an hour away. And the scary hotel advertised cable, but the channel you could watch was the one from the front desk person was watching. My favorite part was whatever I asked about, the answer was that my best bet was maybe Garberville. Lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans. Used to go there to score my heroin when I was in the streets, since I lived about half an hour away. Part of the blame, though, is to be laid on the huge lack of government and authorities appropriating funds to rebuild after Katrina. They left that place in shambles, and you can still see the effects to this day. Couches under bridges, people just hanging about in the streets like it's a party, but there's only abandoned buildings and hopelessness. I had a black friend in the car, and we were driving around Missouri looking for meth, years ago I should say, and we had a white guy who was affiliated with the Rolling 60s Crips. We were driving around, thinking just going to town, and we ended up in Festus, Missouri, when the white guy slinks down in the car and goes, "Yeah, I can't be seen with y'all here, they'll shoot me," or something to that extent, and he was actually serious. I'm not racist or anything at all, but the vibe turned very dark, and I saw a lot of folks looking and staring as we went by. I don't know what they were thinking, but man, I literally felt like I was going to die. Meridian, Mississippi. Not scary because it's violent, although it's getting there, but scary in how the city council absolutely refuses to do anything for anyone other than themselves. They're perfectly content to let business and opportunity pass them by while the city continues to rot and seep further into despair and poverty. And the scariest thing about it is how everyone who lives in or around it finds it perfectly acceptable. Then they'll start quoting crime rates, pollution, bad traffic, or other such big city ills in other worse-off cities when they've never actually been to or know someone who's been to those cities in the first place. And the few people who are aware of how bad Meridian is are stuck there. They move back to Meridian from other better places so they can take care of their elderly parents or uncle or aunt or some such. And they take an assistant manager or supervisor role just until they can get their family's affairs in order. But then the place they're working at closes down or lays them off, and the family member they were taking care of goes into the hospital and or finally passes, and all their savings get sucked up into medical bills or funeral expenses, and then they have to desperately scrounge through the old cracked streets to find a lower paying job that can help them get back on their feet. But then the landlord raises the rent or their vehicle breaks down and they have more expenses to take care of. Fast forward 10 years and you've got a really broken and tired waitress or cashier soullessly carrying their tasks with a certain weightedness to it, like gravity is 3 times higher for them, and every word that comes out of their mouth is hollow. But make mention of the right city on the east or west coast, and suddenly the light returns to their eyes, and their voice picks up an octave as they recount experiences that they had there years past before they moved here, a small spark of hope that is yet to die. Do not, ever, move anywhere near Meridian, Mississippi, even for your family. Now, if I didn't know any better, I might make the assumption that this may have afflicted our poster, and maybe they're stuck in Meridian, Mississippi. What do you think? Tondo, in the Philippines. It's because a relative of mine currently lives there. One time, me and my family decided to have a sleepover, and it was early in the morning. Sun was shining, and I saw 3 cop cars and tapes all over a dead body next to my cousin's house. Good thing I was the only one that saw it, or else either my mom and dad would panic and immediately leave. We only drove through it, but Camden, New Jersey. My friend's dad who drove us trained me on the way to the town. If I say duck, you get down immediately. No questions, no hesitation. I didn't understand why, until a couple of years later, when my friend told me it was a case of a shooting. Like, what? I was maybe 12 or 13. There were some small towns I saw from the highway driving through the American desert Southwest that you couldn't pay me to spend the night in. They're probably really quiet places, but in the daylight, they look like some shady shit probably happens. Tropic, Utah, a wide spot in the road near Bryce Canyon National Park. A few strange things we observed in 2 days. We saw no children. We saw no one using a cell phone. In the early 2010s, grocery store was well stocked with doomsday prepper typed products like giant cans of bread. At least 3 different young women we met working in the town had heavy Eastern European accents. When we finally asked someone what was with all the Slavic women, they became very uncomfortable and told us they were here to learn English. This is a town with a 3-digit population and no visible educational facilities. Egypt, especially Cairo. They take pictures of you, they grab you, almost got kidnapped, They offer all kinds of drugs. They even took us hostage on the road. We had to get out of the bus and go into the gas station to Abu Simbel. Amazing history and architecture, but today's culture is horrible. Never again. Right after 9/11, Pazni, Pakistan, I was with a Marine Expeditionary Unit. We landed in Pazni via amphibious craft. I felt more in danger there than at any point in Afghanistan. Every military-aged male I saw looked at me like they wanted to castrate me. In Afghanistan, the people were super awesome. Loved them like my own family. A town in New Mexico that apparently doesn't exist. I don't remember the name of it and can't find it on any map. Me and my then husband were driving cross-country on I-40. We needed a bathroom break and saw a sign for a gas station, so we took the exit. Then things got weird. The road we got on was just a totally straight road. Not too uncommon out there, but still felt kinda weird. There was one small building off to the left, but it wasn't a gas station. I'm not sure what it was. I just remember it was blue and had one window. There were power lines and nothing else in sight. So I continued forward, hoping the gas station wasn't too far. I started to feel more and more uneasy, and everything felt like it was slowing down. After maybe a few minutes, time was weird. We noticed a building on the left side of the road up ahead, feeling some relief thinking it was the gas station. As we approached, I realized it wasn't the gas station, but the same exact blue building we encountered just off the highway. We looked at each other, absolutely bewildered. Looked behind us, and there was no sign of the highway or the first blue building. We tried to shake it off and continued forward. This kept happening. The same weird time stretch, the same exact blue building. It was like that one stretch of road just kept repeating at least a dozen times. I wanted to turn around, get the hell out of there, but somehow I couldn't. I felt almost paralyzed, stuck just driving forward. Neither of us spoke a word for a long time. Then, suddenly it felt like a fog was lifted and we woke up. A few seconds later, we finally see the gas station up ahead. We both just kind of went, "What the F?" as I pulled into the parking lot. We were tempted to not go in, but we both really had to go, so we said F it. It was a tiny gas station, one pump with a small convenience store attached. There was a sign that said restrooms pointing to the side of the building. There we found a door to a long dark corridor, all brick and cement. There were doors up ahead on the right-hand side, so we hoofed it to them. Finally, bathrooms. We did our business and all was normal. As we were walking back out of the corridor, we came across a young woman coming into the corridor. She stopped and stared at us like we had 3 heads. She looked bewildered and terrified. She hurried past us towards the bathrooms. Something about the look on her face, or maybe it was just a feeling, told us we were running out of time and had to get the F out of there ASAP. We booked it back onto the road towards where the highway should be. In just a few minutes, we saw that same blue building as before, then the highway on-ramp just past it. We had no trouble getting back onto the highway and driving away from that town. It was such a weird, almost insidious experience, almost like something, I don't know what, almost trapped us, but we got away in time. The further away we drove, the more confused we were as to why we didn't turn around and leave ASAP. It was like we were not in control. I hope to never experience something like that again. Sounds almost a bit supernatural. Pretty cool, and would be a really interesting thing for a small town to do, just to kind of freak out people visiting. Kilgore, Texas. If they didn't go to school with you or aren't related to you, they don't want you there, and make sure you know it. Also, if you're ever driving through there and you see a car sitting at an intersection up ahead, you should know they're waiting to pull out when you get close enough that you'll have to slam on your brakes. I've been to a few places all over the world, and I don't scare easily, so this will likely be an odd response for many. I think the place that had me most focused would be St. Petersburg, Russia, 2019. Don't get me wrong, I had an amazing time. The Hermitage Museum is by far one of the most vast and amazing I've ever been to. However, being a former US soldier, I was a bit surprised I got the visa, to be honest. Then there's the water. You cannot drink the water, or you will most certainly get sick. There are literally advertisements, not PSA-like, but actual ad-like in the airports and on the plane traveling there, cautioning people about drinking the water. Then, when I touched down, obviously alone, because why not? My taxi driver was a literal beast of a man. I'm 6'1", and he was at least 7 feet tall. He towered over me and must have been a bodybuilder for sure. Polite as hell, but didn't speak a word of English, and of course I speak no Russian. Then my hotel, if you can call it that, ended up being in the town center, but in this really seedy area where I'm almost certain there was a brothel on one of the floors and some pretty shady individuals who hung around outside. To top things off, I almost got into a fight with a local drunk right outside the hotel, and I'm pretty sure he was threatening my life. Now, I almost always go into the countries and cities that I visit. I don't just hang around the tourist areas, so I'm okay and used to a little seediness here and there, and honestly that's all it was. But I was definitely on edge a couple times during the trip. But I was not completely alone, as I was there visiting a Russian friend I met in Romania many years ago. We usually kept in contact through WhatsApp. But when this war broke out, the account just disappeared. I have no way to contact her and have no idea if she is okay. She's Ukrainian born and talked a lot about moving back the last time we spoke. So this whole situation kinda just doubles down on the initial experience. Damn, F war.